Yes, now blessed now. Dezrocksteady at King of the Pit TV. We're gonna continue, man. We've got such an incredible depth of information on the debut Ramones record via Wikipedia. So if as always, it can be doctored up. So if you have any disagreements with what's been put forward, please let me know. We're gonna continue on with our insight on the Ramones debut record. Okay, so we got to artwork and packaging. Part one is available. I'm hoping that I haven't put part two up first, alright? So check the channel. Just search King of the Pit TV, Ramones, Des Learns or something. Artwork and packaging. Initially, the Ramones wanted an album cover similar to Meet the Beatles, which was put out in '64, which, is that the debut or is Please Please Me the first? Second album, Please Please Me was the first, I think. And subsequently had pictures taken in that style by Danny Fields, but Sarah was dissatisfied for the results. With the results, the art direction was by Tony Wadler, and according to cartoonist John Holmstrom, the Meet the Beatles cover idea came out horribly. Wadler later chose a photo by Roberta Bailey, a photographer for Punk magazine, for the cover. The black and white photograph on the front of the album was originally in an issue of Punk. I wonder if she got credited for it financially. She does own the rights. The cover photo, well, if it was paid for, maybe the Ramones or whomever paid for it owns the rights. The cover photo features from left to right Johnny, Tommy, Joey and Dee Dee Ramone staring at the camera with blank faces. They were all wearing ripped and faded blue jeans and leather jackets, standing upright against the brick wall of a private community garden called Albert's Garden, located in the Bowery neighborhood of New York City, between the Bowery and 2nd Street. The stance of the group members in the photograph would influence their future cover designs as well, with the majority of their succeeding albums using a picture of the band in the front cover. Music historian Legs McNeil states that Tommy is standing on his tiptoes and Joey is hunched over a bit. The back cover art, which depicts a belt buckle with a bald eagle and the band's logo, was designed by Arturo Vega. So we've got the back cover there. I don't know if you can see it. Let me have a little dig. Yeah, you should be able to see it. I don't think it works very well with the front cover, to be honest with you, that back cover. The colour scheme, at least. Let's keep moving. So, the back cover art, which depicts a belt buckle. Yep, liner notes on the back cover fail to acknowledge backing vocalists and additional instrument players. You'd be gutted, wouldn't you, years on down the line? Lee, who performed backing vocals on several tracks, asked guitarist Johnny why he was not mentioned on the record's credits. Johnny replied, "We didn't want people to get confused with who's in the band and who's not. It's our first album, and we didn't get people to be confused." You got mugged off, to be honest. You got mugged off. You didn't get credit. You should have got a credit. The artwork became one of the most imitated album covers in music. The image of a band in front of a brick wall dressed in ripped jeans and leather jackets was copied by Alvin and the Chipmunks in Chipmunk Punk. Ramones' artwork was ranked on number 58 on Rolling Stone's 91 list of 100 greatest album covers. Bro, Rolling Stones just creates lists. That's all they do. They just create lists. I'm sick of hearing about this random Rolling Stones best haircuts of 2021 and shit. Promotion. There were 2 singles released from the album, Blitzkrieg Pop and I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend. The first was released in February '76, originally as a 7-inch split single with Havana Affair as a B-side. The release, along with the Ramones 2001 expanded edition, featured Blitzkrieg Pop remixed as a single version, although it maintained... I wonder what the... I guess it's just a remix, innit? Because what's the single version going to be? Any longer? Any shorter? What's the difference? Although it maintains a time of 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Well, there you go. It's no different. On January 6, 2004, Rhino Entertainment re-released Blitzkrieg Pop as a CD single using Sheena as a Punk Rocker as its B-side. I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend was released in September '76 as a 7-inch single. It included live versions of California Sun and I Don't Wanna Walk Around With You as its B-sides. Recorded at the Roxy Theatre in West Hollywood in August '76. I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend was also released in the UK, giving the band a presence in the European marketplace. Even though the song saw some success in the UK and Europe, it failed to chart in the top 50. Touring. In '74, the band played 30 performances, nearly... I don't know how to know this stuff. You know what I mean? When you first start a band and that, who knows how many performances you played? You don't keep up with them, do you? Nearly all at the New York-based club CBGB, all but one of the band's 75 gigs, 1975 gigs were booked for New York City, with Waterbury, Connecticut as the exception. After the album's recording, the Ramones headlined for very few shows, usually opening for an identified cover band, which played Aerosmith and Boston. Right, so they were following around one particular cover band that was playing Aerosmith and Boston tunes. When they opened at Brockton, Massachusetts, the audience appeared extremely uninterested in the Ramones, so Johnny swore off playing an introduction. Well, they didn't want to play for any other bands. Following this, Fields booked several headlining shows around the tri-state area, and they began playing frequently at gigs like CBGB's and Max's Kansas City. After performing with Blondie in New Jersey, they continued their tour to Boston, Massachusetts for 3 shows. Lee later said of the tour, "Travelling was difficult. Most of the time it's just Danny Fields, me and the members of the band. We'd get 2 rooms in the hotel, 3 of us in each. They couldn't afford any more help at that point, so the band had to pitch in and load up." I mean, to be honest with you, as far as getting a band and going and starting and stuff, being able to afford, 2 hotel rooms a night and stuff, that's actually quite, what's the word? It's quite privileged, to be honest with you. Like, they're all right to do so. I don't know if they were paying pennies back then to stay in hotels, but I never had the money to do that when I was touring and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? I'm not down on my luck and poor. It's just like, it's expensive, man. It's expensive. You sleep in the car. I mean, we didn't have a van or out, did we? We just toured in a bloody car. I'd play the drums during sound checks while Tommy went out to board and mixed the sound and instructed the sound man not to F with the settings. We would enlist the aid of any fan willing to help us load out at the end of the night. At the time, Lee was road manager, stage manager, chauffeur and head of security. Vega, who contributed to the album's packaging, helped out with the road crew as much as possible. Tommy's friend Monty Melnick occasionally helped with the audio output, but this was typically done by Lee. Following their debut album's release, the band performed at over 60 concerts for its promotion. While most of the gigs were booked in North America, 2 dates, July the 4th and 5th, were in London's Roundhouse venue and Dingwalls, which we've heard of, respectively. Lindestein pushed to make these events happen, setting up the band performances in the UK during the United States bicentennial. Fields relates, "On the 200th anniversary of our freedom, we were bringing Great Britain a gift that was forever going to disrupt their sensibilities." The band sold out for their first London performance with an audience of roughly 3,000. Wow, how are they promoting the Ramones back then? Lee described the Dingwalls gig as very similar to Pomps at G. Sorry people. Lee described the Dingwalls gig as very similar to performances at CBGB. Likewise, these venues in future were headlined by other punk bands like The Clash and The Pistols. The band that performed over 100 concerts the following year. Right, so we got the reception here. This could be quite interesting, considering all of the references of initially the record not being respected the way it's looked at through the lens of history. Ramones was released on April 23rd, 76 by Sire Records and received glowing reviews. In May, John Rockwell of the New York Times published a rave review saying, "What the Ramones do is deliver a non-stop set of short, brisk, monochromatically intense songs. Conventional considerations of pace and variety are thrown calculatedly to the winds. The ingredients are simplicity itself." Rockwell noted the effect in the end amounts to abstraction of rock so pure that other associations get left behind. Very nice. Nick Kent favourably commented in The Enemy, "This record poses a direct threat to any vaguely sensitive woofer and or tweeter lodged in your hi-fi." Reviewing that same month in the Village Voice, Robert Christgau said that while the power of the band's music draws from fairly anonymous sources like Nazi imagery and brutality, he cannot deny the sheer pleasure of the music. "For me, it blows everything else off the radio. It's clean the way the Dolls never were, sprightly the way the Velvets never were, and just plain listenable the way Black Sabbath never was." Wow. He's going in on a few bands there. In July, Paul Nelson of Rolling Stone wrote in 76 that the album was similar to early rock and roll and was constructed using rhythm tracks of great intensity. In August, Cream dubbed the Ramones as the most radical album of the past 6 years, saying, "It's so strikingly different, so brazenly out of touch with prevailing modes as to constitute a bold swipe at the status quo." Reviewer Gene Scarlatti said it as rock and roll's reactionary manifesto, a sharp wedge between the stale ends of a contemporary music scene bloated with greying superstars and overripe for takeover. Critic Joe S. Harrison declared that the album was a huge landmark for music history, proclaiming that it split the history of rock and roll in half. Funis Bates, a writer for Time, summed the album up with Ramones stripped rock back to its basic elements. Lyrics are very simple, boiled down declarations of teen lust and need. Bates also said that is the ultimate punk statement. Charles M. Young of Rolling Stone regarded Ramones as one of the funniest rock records ever made and, if punk continues to gain momentum, a historic turning point. Chris Needs of Zigzag declared that the album's mutant vocals and ultra simplicity of the music and lyrics do take some getting used to. How do you have to get used to the simplicity, man? Surely you have to take more care getting used to complexity. But once you get past the curiosity stage, the effect can be shattering, especially at high volume, and that it was impossible to mention highlights because the whole album's a highlight. What great words, geared and stripped down for maximum energy and effect. Later reviews of Ramones tended to praise the album's influence on rock music. In '95, Jeff Tamarkin of the All Music Guide to Rock said that the album ignited the punk rock era, writing, "Rock's mainstream didn't know what hit it." 2001, April Long of NME rewarded the album with a perfect score, remarking that the Ramones were arguably the most influential band ever, despite their lack of mainstream acceptance. Stephen Thomas Erlewine of AllMusic also deemed the album influential, saying, "In comparison to some of the music the album inspired, the Ramones sounds a little tame. It's a little too clean, and compared to their insanely fast live albums, it sounds a little slow." The album's sound was considered by Erlewine to be all about speed, hooks, stupidity, and simplicity. Yeah. Regardless of this critical acclaim, Ramones was not successful commercially. It only reached number 111 on the US Billboard Top LPs and Tape chart and sold 6,000 units in its first year. That's mad compared to some of the bands we've been checking out, like Maiden and stuff like that, who were just selling tons. Still, if you're a local band and you sell 6,000 records in the first year, that's really good, in my opinion. Outside the US, the album peaked at number 48 on the Swedish chart. The album was included in Spin magazine's list of top 10 college cult classics in 1995, where it was noted that everything good that's happened to music in the last 14 years can be directly traced to the Ramones. Also in 1995, the Spin Alternative Record Guide named it the #1 alternative rock album. In 2001, the magazine also included the album in its special issue 25 Years of Punk, with a list of the 50 most essential punk records, where it resided at the top spot. That same year, it was named the 4th best punk album by Mojo, who called it the coolest, dumbest, simplest, greatest rock and roll record to ever be cut by 4 sweet, dysfunctional screw-ups. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at the 2002 induction ceremony. With the website, I'm going to have a look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well, people, alright? With the website stating that their first album changed the rock genre from bloated and narcissistic to basic rock and roll. To be fair, yeah, narcissistic being a term used. The Ramones record is not very egocentric, which is brilliant. 2003, Ramones was considered, well, in my perspective at least, Ramones was considered by Spin's Chuck Klosterman, Greg Milner, and Alex Papademos to be the 6th most influential album of all time. They noted that the album saved rock from itself and punk rock from art gallery pretension. Q magazine included the album in their 100 Greatest Albums Ever 2003 list, where it was listed at number 74. In 2006, it was chosen by Time as one of the 100 Greatest Albums Ever. Ramones was included in Chris Smith's 2009 book, 101 Albums That... I hate all these lists. Who cares, man? I'll tell you what, a lot of these artists and PR companies will be paying to get into lists and blogs and media spaces and to be spoken positively on the radio and in the media and so forth. So, you know, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, people. Don't get it twisted. In 2010, it was ranked as the greatest debut album of the year in 76. Quite niche. It was placed first in the Rolling Stones 100 Best Debut Albums of All Time list. The album went gold in the US just after its 38th anniversary, certified by the RIAA on April 30th, 2014. In 2016, Rhino Records announced the July 29th release of a 40th anniversary deluxe edition, Let's Make Some Money, comprising 3 CDs and 1 LP, including stereo and mono mixes of the original album, single mixes, outtakes and demos, and a live 76 performance. Right, legacy and influence coming up next, okay, so we're going to have a look as to, who took flight after taking a little bit of influence from the RAMONES. Legacy and influence. So, Ramones is considered to have established the musical genre of punk rock, as well as popularising it years afterwards. Ramones wrote that it offered alienated future rock and it disconnected from tradition. The album was the start of the Ramones' influence on pop music. with examples being genres such as heavy metal, thrash metal, indie pop, grunge, post-punk, and most. You know what? I can't identify post-punk too well. We might have to listen to some post-punk, most notably punk rock. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame said that of their influence on rock in general. We've read this bit. Despite the lack of popularity in its era, the importance of the album for the development of punk rock music was incredible, influencing most of the well-known names in punk rock, including The Damned, The Clash, Black Flag, Misfits. I read about how Rollins was influenced by Ramones when he had seen them live and thought, wow, blistering speed. It was the speed in particular I remember him referencing. And Green Day. Billy Joe Armstrong, singer for Green Day, explained his reasoning for listening to the band. They had songs that just stuck in your head, just like a hammer they banged right into your brain. The album also had a great impact on the English punk scene as well, with the bassist for Generation X, Tony James, saying that the album caused English bands to change their style. When their album came out, commented James, all the English groups tripled speed overnight, 2-minute long songs very fast. In another interview, James stated that everybody went up 3 gears the day they got that first Ramones album, punk rock, that Rama Lama super fast stuff. Is totally down to the Ramones. Bands were just playing in an MC5 groove until then. In 1999, Classic Albums by Collins Gem recognised Ramones as the start of English punk rock and called it the fastest and hardest music that could possibly be concocted, stating, the songs were short, sharp, exercising, vicious speed thrash, driven by ferocious guitars and yet halting in an instant. It was the simple pop dream taken to its minimalist extreme. In 2012, the album was preserved by the National Recording Registry, deeming it culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. How crazy is that? The album was preserved by the National Recording. We're going to check that out. We're definitely going to check out the National Recording Registry. That's crazy. I've never heard of that before. I bet there's some money there. Cover versions and tributes. Each song of the Ramones has been covered by various bands. Sonic Youth covered Beat on the Brat on their 87 EP Master Equals Dick, as did Weird Al Yankovic on the Dr. Demento covered in Punk LP. In 91, German punk band Die Toten Hosen played Blitzkrieg Pop on their cover album Learning English Lesson 1. A tribute album titled Gabba Gabba Hey, a tribute to the Ramones, was released on August 30th, 91. It contained the songs Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, 53rd and 3rd, and I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement, Loudmouth, and Beat on the Brat. Screeching Weasel released Ramones 92, which consisted of the bands performing the entire album tracklist. 1998's Blitzkrieg Over You, a tribute to the Ramones, featured a cover Judy is a Punk in German, and in 2000 both Blitzkrieg Pop and Beat on the Brat appeared on Dee Dee Ramone's solo release Greatest and Latest. Ooh, Dee Dee Ramone's solo release, eh? That sounds tasty. The compilation albums Ramones Maniacs includes Youth Gone Mad's version of Blitzkrieg Pop featuring a guest appearance by Dee Dee, and Yogurt's rendition of Beat on the Brat. Blitzkrieg Pop, Havana Affair, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend, and Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue were all covered on the song Ramones the Same. We're a Happy Family, a tribute to Ramones in 2003, featured several of the album's songs covered by bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rob Zombie, Metallica, U2. Metallica are always covering a band here and there. They're always referenced on these great big epic tribute albums. Pete Young's I Want to Be Your Boyfriend and John Frusciante Today I Love did, well, Pete Young's covered I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. In 2006, Blitzkrieg Pop was reworked into a children's song and the Brats on the Beat, Ramones for Kids. That is sick. We need to listen to that. Yeah, we're going to listen to that one. We're going to do a reaction to that one, I think. And yeah, that's about it for the info. That was a blast, wasn't it? We've got a couple of notes. So, tracks 15 and 16 produced by Marty Fow at 914 Sound Studios, September. Alright, yeah, this doesn't matter. The notes are just in relation to, you know, any differentiation in the track listing. Yeah, we've got to put some respect on that record. We're going to keep it moving because on this channel we've listened to a couple of Ramones records now, so I'm going to keep on moving forwards to their second record. Alright, peace and one love.